Okay. All right. So if you look on Canvas, you should see this on Canvas. Test two prompts are right here. Here's the test. The test is a take-home test. I mean, for you guys, it's always a take-home test. But the test is due next Thursday, a week from today, the absolute latest. Okay. It's slightly different than before. On these ones, for these ones, I'm going to pick two of them and you'll pick one. And then for this one, all students are doing this one. Okay. So you need to prepare those. It's the end of the quarter. And so it's due on Thursday. I have to post grades on Friday. So that means I'm going to come in, grade them on Friday morning, post the grades. This means you cannot be late, right? You cannot be late. If you're late, then you get a 0 and that's life. Do we understand each other? We all understand? Okay. It also means that there's no retakes. There's no retakes on this one, so do it correctly. Do it correctly the first time. Next week, I'm happy to talk to you about your prompts if you guys want to, like after class, after we do our lessons, we can just hang out on Zoom for another 10 or 15 minutes and I can help you with prompts if you want. But I'm not going to require that, right? I'm not going to require it. But if you have it ready and you can say, hey, here, how's my thesis? How's my thing? You'll also notice that all 4 of these are comparing the US and South Africa. They're all comparing the US and South Africa, right? It's almost like it's cumulative. You see how that works? All right, cool. Do we have questions about this at all? Going once, questions going twice. All right. Other than the test prompts, when is the last day for any work from me?
The 11th.
Monday, the 11th, right? Monday's the last day for anything. Retaking tests, turning in your parallels paper, turning in whatever else you got to turn in, including the notes today, right? So I need after class today, I recommend your notes are done. So after class today, your notes are done. I want you to turn them all into me. Okay, take your pictures and turn them in. You're welcome to stop by and do it in person if you'd like, or you can just email it to me. There isn't a place on Canvas to do it, so just email it to me. Cool? Are we all understanding each other? And the notes, it should be all of South Africa, right? I think it's everything from the start of apartheid all the way till today. Cool? Okay. All right, let's finish off. Oh, there's one last assignment that students were working on in class today. They were working on in class. It's my intention that you be able to, split it and work with people. You guys can do that as well. It's this one right here, the South African Constitution. The South African Constitution, I want you to look at the Constitution. The Constitution is like 153 pages long, right? So I do not expect you to read the whole thing. But what you'll find is it's very different than the United States Constitution. The US Constitution is really short. It's only like 10 pages long, something like that. And the US Constitution is, like 25% poetry, right? And like largely vague, because they were like, inventing government and stuff, right? They're inventing democracy. But in the South African Constitution, it's written in, ratified in 1996. So it's a very modern document. I think you'll find it quite interesting. And because it's so long, it addresses lots and lots of issues. So what I want you to do is look through the Constitution, find where these issues are in the Constitution, these 6 issues, okay? You can cut and paste, you can take notes on what those 6 issues are. And then what I really, really care about is part 2. You're going to write a paragraph for each of the 6 issues, assessing to what extent has South Africa been able to keep up with its constitutional ideals, right? So if it has a constitutional ideal that everyone has an equal education, then I want you to go on the internet and find evidence to what extent do they have an equal education, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to see if South Africa is ignoring their constitution the same way that Americans ignored the 15th Amendment, right? The Americans passed the 15th Amendment giving everyone the right to vote and then promptly ignored it for 100 years, right? Because the Americans are like, I don't know if it applies to Alabama. I don't know, right? And they just like didn't let Black people vote for 100 years, right? And so the question is South Africa doing the same kind of thing, right? I think you'll find mixed results. I think you'll find that in some cases South Africa is doing pretty well. In other cases, it's not doing all that well. Okay, so but a very very common thing to ask on the IB exam is like the value of a constitution and the degree to which a constitution helps or hurts reform and a degree to which the constitution is followed. Cool. Give me a thumbs up if you understand. We're all good. Okay. All right. Any questions at all? All right. So this is due Monday. If you have a question, probably the best thing to do is email me, and then I can, call you up or get on Zoom and help you out or whatever we need to do. Okay. Again, all of my in-person students worked on this in class for like 45 minutes with a partner, right? And so most of the in-person people got it like mostly done. They got like basically all the research done, and they just have to write the paragraphs up. You guys are online, so, sorry, that's the way the world is. But if you guys want to like split it up amongst you and like talk to each other and, whatever, Snapchat each other about it or whatever you're gonna, Insta Snap or whatever, you guys can do whatever you need to do. Okay. And turn it in. I am fine if your part 1 is like shared with people where it's like identical, but I want your part 2 to be unique, right? The part 2, you should be writing your own paragraphs, but you can share the research. Is that cool? Is that clear with you guys? Cool. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go here. All right. So, all right. One of the things last time I wrote up on the board and stuff, and we had a whole bunch of like issues that South Africa needs to face, right? And one of the biggest issues, the overriding big issue, is this issue of revenge. We have all these things listed, and then we put revenge in big red letters, right? And that revenge kind of poisons every issue, right? I can't solve any of these issues if that revenge isn't there. One of the things that South Africa recognizes very early is that they need to solve that revenge issue. And so they start something called Truth and Reconciliation Commissions. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This is the first country in the world to do this, but it's pretty successful, mostly successful. And so a lot of other countries have copied it. I read in the news like 3 or 4 days ago that Sierra Leone has just started a, excuse me, that 3 or 4 days ago that Sierra Leone has started a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for their own civil war and stuff, right? So a lot of countries are starting to copy this. I think there's about a dozen copies of this now. But South Africa is the first place to do it, okay? It's headed up by this man in the picture here. Who's this guy? You remember who this guy is? Yash, who is this guy? The gentleman.
Is that Desmond Tutu?
It sure is Desmond Tutu. All right, it sure is Desmond Tutu. And what's Desmond Tutu's day job?
He's in religion. I forgot the exact word, but he's in religion. Yeah, he is.
He is a archbishop. I think he's a cardinal at this time. Whatever. He's a religious leader. Right? Okay. So it's led by Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu is largely the source of this, right? This is largely his brainchild, though he's not alone. Okay, but he's like kind of the most important figure. Mandela is president at this time, and so Mandela asks Tutu to do this. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission is based in something called restorative justice. Restorative justice. This is a phrase that my students last year didn't know what restorative justice was. They had never heard that phrase before, but you guys living in this like post Black Lives Matter world, you may have heard this phrase. This phrase was all over the news in the summertime. Do you guys know what it is? Do any of you guys know what it is? Tiffany, you're nodding your head. Do you know what it is? No. Okay. Any of you guys? Michael Liu. Oh, Wentao. Yeah, go Wentao.
Isn't it fix people and not punish them?
Yeah, that's a pretty good like summation, right? So restorative justice is a philosophy of justice that all people, both the guilty and the victim, can and should be restored. They can be reconciled. They can be saved. Okay, they can be redeemed. Both the victim and the guilty. They can be saved and redeemed. Okay, the United States does not use a system of restorative justice. The United States uses, and most countries, use a system called punitive justice. Okay, punitive justice, and I would describe this too in your notes, because you need to be comfortable in describing this in opposition to each other. So punitive justice is where the justice system is based around the idea that the guilty must be punished, that the punishment itself is the virtue, right? It's a good thing to punish someone. It's a good thing to put them in jail forever. It's a good thing to lock them up. It's a good thing to execute them, right? And it's this idea that punitive justice is that some people are so bad and that they've done such bad crimes and such terrible stuff that they just can never be saved at all. And so it's better to just execute them, right? In a system of restorative justice, however, everyone can be saved. Everyone. So restorative justice won't execute people, no execution, and no life without parole. Okay, no execution, no life without parole. And everybody, no matter what crime you did, can be saved. Okay? The goal of this system is also that the victims be made whole again, right? So that the victim, punishment doesn't help the victim, right? So like if you're the victim and somebody has, murdered your family member, right? And so that person gets arrested and thrown in jail, and then they rot in jail forever, and they stay in jail for the next 80 years, right? Did that actually fix things for you? Not really, right? It doesn't bring your brother back, right? Your brother's still dead, right? It doesn't bring it back. It doesn't fix things for you in that way. Restorative justice focuses on whatever it needs to do to fix the victim as well, right? So sometimes that means giving them money or therapy or compensation of some kind, right? Like it just depends on what the nature of the crime is. Is that clear? Are we clear on this? Okay. Desmond Tutu believes this very strongly. Okay. And he talks about it in a very Christian, like rooted in Christianity way, right? This idea that you could redeem somebody, and that's a very Christian idea, right? And so he talks about it in these like Christian terminology, though it's oftentimes not Christians. Native Americans oftentimes are some of the biggest advocates for this in the United States. Native Americans are. Indians from India. Indians from India are also a big proponent of this. Gandhi's going to talk about this quite a bit, right? So it's not just Christians, but it is a lot of Christians, okay? And in the case of Tutu, it is Christian, okay? What he does is he forms this commission. This commission is an independent commission meant to investigate the crimes of the government. So it's an independent commission meant to investigate the crimes of the government in order to discover the truth. The primary goal here is the truth. That's the goal. That's the primary goal, is the truth. And Tutu is very clear about, he's very clear about the goal being the truth. Okay, and the truth is a tricky thing, right? The truth requires everyone to agree on a set of facts. Truth is a complex thing. It's a complicated thing. It's not a fact, right? It's a fact that my pen is blue. It is not necessarily the truth of my pen, right? The truth of my pen is that it's, you know, useful, and that it's really, you know, it enables me to do these things. It, you know, it helps me do, there's all these other like aspects of my pen that matter more than the color that it's blue, right? A fact is one isolated piece of information. The truth is a complex of information. And the truth is a lot trickier. He's trying to discover the truth of apartheid. So what this means is, here's your next line down. What this means is everybody who was victimized by apartheid is invited to come forward and testify about how they were victimized. Everybody. Anybody who was victimized is invited to come forward and testify about what happened. Now, that's a lot of people, right? It's a lot of people. It's like the entire country, essentially. It ends up being about 20,000 complaints. And you could put in parentheses there. It ends up being somewhere around 20,000 complaints. A lot of the complaints are kind of like consolidated together, right? Instead of having like 500 complaints against this one police department, what we do is we take all 500 and mash them into one complaint about the police department, right? The police department of this one city, something like that, right? Is they mash them together. If we have, you know, 30 complaints about the same school, what we do is we merge those 30 into one complaint about the school. Okay, so it ends up being about 20,000 complaints, many of them merged together, many of them the result of having been merged. And what happens is the victims will write up a statement or give an oral recorded statement about what happened to them, right? At this time, at this place, this happened, and this, you know, these people saw it. And then they're invited into the commission where they come and talk to the commission about what happened. Now, the other thing here is everybody, all the victims. This includes white victims of MK. Okay, so all victims. This includes blacks, this includes Indians, this includes whites. It includes anybody who can claim to be a victim of apartheid. And they all come in, and then the guilty or the accused, right? The people who are accused, they come in and they attest to everything. Everything. Every complaint against them and every complaint that they don't have against them. So, for example, let's say we have 1,000 people complaining about the chief of police of Johannesburg, right? So the chief of the police of Johannesburg comes in and they say, we have these complaints, A, B, C, D, E, and G, E, F, G, right? And he goes through all of them and he says, yep, they confirms, denies, whatever, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then he's also supposed to say, well, they also didn't say this, but X, Y, and Z need to be on this list as well, right? The goal is the truth. Now, how are you going to get the police commissioner to come in, if that? How are you going to get him to come in? Tyler, what do you have to do to get the police commissioner to come in and testify like that? Tyler, going once?
I'm not sure.
Oh no, come on now. How about you, Alex?
Not sure, maybe offer compensation, like money. I don't know.
You got to offer him something. Money's not going to work. What do you have to offer him? Yeah, Tiff?
Like immunity or something like that?
Yeah. The word we're looking for is amnesty. Tiffany's on the right. You're on the right track. The word you're looking for is amnesty. you have to offer amnesty for them. And so what they do is they offer amnesty. And they say, if you come in and you're truthful about everything, then you can get amnesty, depending on what it is, right? Depending on what it is. But here's the problem. Here's the deal. The amnesty has to be real. It has to be real amnesty, right? And you have to be willing to give amnesty for people who did really bad stuff. Otherwise, you will not get the truth, right? And the deal is, if I offer you amnesty and then, a month later we find out that you also did a bunch of other stuff, your amnesty's gone. You go to jail, right? So you need to confess to everything. That amnesty needs to be there, okay? Now, I think you guys can already see this is pretty controversial, right? This is pretty controversial, especially if we want revenge. Why is the truth so important? Tutu is prioritizing truth here. Michael Liu, why is the truth so important? What do you think, man? Take a shot.
Let's see. I feel like going off the failure, kind of like in the US at least, there's a sort of a systemic problem that came after, even though they tried to address what happened and the issues. Here they're trying to uncover everything and sort of reset everything, kind of.
Yep. That's 100% correct. That would be perfectly great in an essay. All right. So under here, let's say the goal of uncovering the truth. The goal of uncovering the truth. Let's put goal number 1 is they're trying to avoid the mistakes of the United States. They're trying to avoid lost cause ideology, right? They're trying to avoid lost cause ideology, right? Ilha, you remember what lost cause ideology is? What is it?
It was the Southerners after the American Civil War, a while after, they started justifying the ideology of the Confederacy.
Yeah, and it's why people can raid the Capitol yesterday with a Confederate flag, right, waving over it. Is this idea of lost cause ideology? We watched Lost Cause Ideology in work last night, right, yesterday afternoon, and it's this idea that in the United States it became a real problem because Americans don't agree on the facts. We don't agree on the truth of the Civil War. We don't agree on this, which is why I call Robert E. Lee a traitor to his country in my class, and Mr. Richens calls Robert E. Lee a hero in his class, right? It's because we don't have a shared truth. Does that make sense, right? So goal number 1 is they're trying to avoid that lost cause ideology. What's goal number 2? There's a couple of other goals here with the truth. There's a reason why truth is so important. Let's get Dhruv and Manvith. What do you guys got?
Is it to prevent history from just repeating itself?
Well, that's kind of the lost cause thing, right? That's kind of the lost cause. They don't want to repeat the mistakes of American history, right? What else? Yeah, man.
So is it because it's easier to target what to fix if you know the failure? It's easier to target what you need to fix if you know exactly what you failed in the past. Absolutely, right? I would say, I'm going to phrase it a little bit differently, that they need to diagnose the problem in order to fix the problem, right? The truth is recognizing what the problem is. I can't fix the racist school, right? If you're telling me that this school is producing racist results, I can't fix that unless I know how it's broken, right? Right? I have to know, oh, it's racist because they did A, B, and C. Okay, then I can address A, I can address B, I can address C, and then I can still look around and see if there's other things. If I don't know what I'm looking for, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 of them, but I won't get them all. Okay? So it's the only way that you can diagnose the problem, and it's the only way that you can really actually fix the problem. There's one more thing here. And this has to do with the amnesty.
right? Think about this. If you had a family member who died at the hand of some racist cops or something like that, right? And then those cops are given amnesty, or flip it the other way, you had a family member that died at the hands of an MK terrorist, and then that MK terrorist is given amnesty, right? Can you move on? Yes, you can. Tutu would argue that the only way that you can move on is acknowledging the pain, acknowledging the suffering, and acknowledging the truth of the situation in order for you to move on. Right? One of the big problems with suffering is that you get trapped in your own mind with it, right? And it takes up residence in your brain, and it, you know, eats away at your soul, as Tutu would say, right? It corrodes your soul. Now, that's Tutu's argument. Many people in South Africa don't agree, okay? So through this entire process, there are many times when they're giving amnesty to people that it turns into like riots in the streets, right? There's oftentimes this is happening, right? And this process is a messy process. South Africa is a big place, and apartheid is a big problem, right? So I don't want to sell it to you in a way that I'm telling you that tens of millions of people all agreed, because that's a lie, right? It's a lie. Here's the commission. The commission is broken up, racially broken up. The Constitution dictates that everything has to be gender equal. And so you'll see that everything post-Constitution is gender equal. They wanted to keep an odd number. And so, you know, this is how they came up with the equality, right? But they wanted to keep it diverse. You don't necessarily need these numbers, but you do need to be aware that it includes coloreds and Black Africans and Indians and, you know, white people. The commission, the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, is divided into these three kind of sections. And it's taking place from like 1995 till the year 2000, right? So it's a course of like 5 years worth of time. And at the end of it, well, okay, so the first thing that they're doing is they're looking for the human rights violations. They're trying to assess who's a victim, how were they a victim, what happened to them, right? What are the violations? And they're specifically looking for the violations of the government, okay? The government, what did the government do to these people? Okay, so who's a victim? In what way are they a victim? What is the degree of the severity of their victimhood? What's the degree of the severity of what had been done to them? This is pretty straightforward, right? And this is kind of universally accepted, this one, the human rights violation. I didn't mean to say that they accept the violations. I mean that they accept the investigation of violations, right? The next one here is pretty controversial. This is the amnesty, okay? And this is where you're gonna get situations where there's gonna be a lot of people getting amnesty. And this is something where there's a couple of big controversies. There's controversies with the Army. Does the Army get included in this, right? Especially since the Army did a lot of stuff outside of the country, right? Do crimes committed against MK people in, say, Botswana, does that count, right? Does the Army, can you prosecute the Army when the soldiers are following the orders of the commanders, right? Where they would have been punished had they not done it, right? There's that conflict there. So that is one conflict with the Army. The other conflict is with elected officials, right? The elected leadership of apartheid. And you'll get like President de Klerk, right? You guys remember who de Klerk is, right? Who is de Klerk? Yash, who's de Klerk?
He's the one who platformed to end apartheid.
Yeah. So he's the last white president of South Africa, and he ended apartheid. He's the one who freed Mandela, right? He gets called in. He gets called into the commission, and he has to go testify. And he at first refuses. He's actually quite belligerent about it, right? Because he says, "How dare you people call me in? I'm the one who got the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm the one who ended apartheid. I'm the one who freed Mandela," right? But then the commission says, "Yeah, but you did a bunch of stuff 10 years earlier. You need to answer for what you did during apartheid," right? And this is something where he's actually pretty deeply offended by this. Like it becomes really controversial, right? They can't go after a lot of the leader prior to him. He was already dead. He had a stroke and he was already dead. So you couldn't do anything with him, right? But this amnesty is controversial, okay? If you look down here, 5,000, 5,500 people were refused amnesty, and less than 900 were granted full amnesty. But I'm going to point out to you right now, the overwhelming majority of this 5,000 received no punishment. They weren't given amnesty, but they also weren't given punishment either, right? Where the commission said, we recognize you're guilty, but we also recognize the circumstances under which you're guilty. We're going to put you on what an American would say is probation, right? As long as you don't do anything else, we believe in the restorative justice. We want you to be restored. We won't prosecute you. But if you start to do it again, we're going to hit you with everything you did, essentially, right? So very few of them go to prison. Very few. It's fewer than 100 go to prison. Okay, most of them don't. Which is also, controversial. Okay, here's the last one, and this is where I would say it's mostly mixed results. Reparations for the victims. Part of the restoration here, part of this restorative justice is that the victims need to be made whole again, to however extent you can make them whole again, right? The problem is that very few victims actually receive reparations. Why is that? Tiffany, why are so few victims going to actually receive reparations?
I think because they're still kind of working out. They're in the beginning stages of making their constitution. Their economy is not good. They don't have the resources to give reparations to all the victims.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tiffany, you're absolutely right. You nailed it right away. South Africa's broke. They can't pay for restitutions. They can't pay for reparations. They're just broke, right? We get a situation. By the end of Nelson Mandela's presidency, so he ends his presidency in say 99, I think it was 99 or 2000. He ends his presidency, and by the end of his presidency, the economy is starting to come back. Right, the economy is starting to grow. We're starting to get some wealth and stuff, right? But Mandela is faced with this problem, right? Let's say he has $100 million. The commission comes and they say, well, these people need all this money. Here's $100 million worth of reparations. But Mandela says, with this $100 million, I can either give it to these people or I can repair the entire sewer system of Johannesburg and keep 50,000 people from getting cholera, right? Or I can build 500 schools across this Bantustan, right? And Mandela is going to make the choice, I'm going to repair the sewer system. I'm going to build a power plant. I'm going to build schools, right? And he says, I can give money to these people, but giving money to these people isn't going to help if they die of cholera, right? That doesn't help them, right? But, fixing the sewer system will help them better, right? I think that we just need to acknowledge that there's a complexity here, right? It's a complex problem. It's a big problem, and South Africa has a lot of problems that they're trying to juggle. I think that if I was president, I probably would choose to fix the sewer system also. Probably. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission it's considered a success, right? If we look at its actual goals, I think there's some mixed results, but overall it's considered a success. In 2000 or 2001, they start to publish all of these commission reports. And these are thousands and thousands of pages of reports where the entire country acknowledges what happened and what went wrong and what needs to get fixed and stuff. And it's, the truth is helpful, right? Because South Africa is using these commission reports to, address things like inequity in, different laws and different systems and different agencies and things. Right? In a way that the United States isn't doing. it's hard to say South Africa is a total success. In the year 2021, South Africa still has massive poverty, massive crime. It still has racial inequality. Whites still control 85% of the economy, right? It still has a lot of these problems, but you need to remember the timetables we're dealing with here, right? Remember when we talked about this earlier, how long does it take to fix a school system? What's the minimum amount of time before you can see the fix on a school system? Michael, Lou, you remember? Or Drew, you remember?
Didn't you say it was 12 years?
12 years? No, it's more like 30 usually. It's more like 30. 12 is like the most optimistic, right? But it's more like 30 realistically, right? Because I have to fix that kindergartner all the way to the point that the kindergartner is out of school, out of college, and has a job before I can really know if the kindergartner was fixed. You know what I mean? So we're looking at somewhere between, 20 to 30 years. And we're only 30 years after apartheid right now. So, it's hard, right? All right, I think we're good. I think we're done with South Africa, unless you guys have comments or problems or questions. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, so in that case, I'm gonna stop the recording.